So we're gonna call the meeting to order and go through the roll. Krista,
Here.
Hillary,
Here.
let's turn on some mics. Bill,
Here.
Bob,
Here.
Mike Sweeney,
Here.
Maria,
Here.
Jane is not here, Jeff,
Here.
and Chris Wilson here. So we have 8 out of 9, pretty good. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from our our online only meeting in August. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Okay, Jeff, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Maria. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So the meeting minutes are officially adopted. Now, we have on our agenda a guest speaker, Tom O'Day, to update us on HB 5002. He asked for Scott Hobbs to join him as well. So if there's no objections, we'll welcome Tom and Scott up to tell us a bit about what's going on in Hartford with HB 5002. Get your mics there.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having us. There we go. Thank you very much for having us. So thanks to some bipartisan support in talking to the governor, Vinnie Candelora, minority leader, I was just talking to him on the way here. He and I have had conversations with the governor's office. The governor's had some conversations with other people on the other side of the aisle, if you will, and recently in town. And Vinnie put it at 90% certain that 5002 is not going to be brought up in special session. I put it at 75, 80% that it wasn't. Vinnie's got his pulse on Hartford very well. I did see the governor, not as recently as some of us in this room, but I saw him less than just a few days ago before the weekend. And he said that he's working with them and that he's confident he can get some consensus. Now, I took that to mean that the 5002 was going to be put on the special session agenda, which is going to be probably the first week of October. Vinnie's understanding is, Vinnie Candelora, that that's not the case, that it's not going to be part of it because Senator Duff and Representative Rojas are not moving in a direction towards a compromise. We're confident the governor is not going to just rubber stamp what they tried to put through before. And we believe there's less support for it than there was before when it was vetoed, when it got voted out. So what I did was, I got some assistance. Maria put me in touch with Margarita Alban down in Greenwich, and she sent me the 8 proposals that they put in with a number of COGs, including Fred Pickering from WestCog, and Robert Hendricks from Ridgefield, and Danielle Dobbin as well. So, of course, Senator Duff and Representative Rojas haven't reached out back to me in my offers to, and my bill, not to try and get anybody here to support it now, but my bill was 6492, and it was a right of first refusal that basically would allow a town, 6492 would allow a town, if somebody proposed an 830G proposal, the town could buy that at a 5% premium. And then within 8 years, the town would have to build 75% of what was proposed affordable. So for example, if a builder proposed a 100-unit complex with 30 affordable, the town would have 8 years to put in 75% of 30, or what, 26 units, 5 units.
Pick tough math.
I know, I'm sorry, but in any event, within 8 years, and if they don't, we have to pay a penalty of 5% of the purchase price to the person who we bought the property from, 5% to the affordable housing program, and then 5% to a state program. So there would be a 15% per year penalty, so to speak, incentive for towns to build affordable housing at 75% of what was proposed within 8 years. Now, that has gotten some bipartisan support, my bill. And some towns don't like it because they don't want to be forced. But at the end of the day, it's a compromise. We can then choose where to put and in what format, whether it's duplexes, whether it's condominiums or whatnot. So, and the governor knows about my bill, and so does Senator Duff and Representative Rojas. They've not co-sponsored it yet in the last few years. But in any event, the reason why I wanted Scott here too, for some answer some questions, it does take a village, but if there's a head of a village who's done more for affordable housing in our town than Mr. Hobbs, I don't know them. But he's been amazing, and he's got his pulse on why, and in particular, frankly, middle housing is something that we need to get done. And so I know that there was an article in the paper about the 3 spots that were kind of looked at for affordable in New Canaan. The town owned the Locust at Richmond Hill, Locust, and the Lumberyard. We need senior housing and we need affordable housing, and we don't want it to be dictated to us. So the good news, my long-winded spiel, I know you got a busy agenda, but the good news is there's a high level of confidence that 5002 is not going to be jammed through, that it's going to go through the process next year. But it is going to come back. So the fact that we've got bipartisan support, and your letter I thought was fantastic, showing that all that New Canaan has done, we are taking a lead. Another bill that I'm proposing is that for each moratorium that a town gets, it's longer to incentivize getting moratoriums. So a 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 12 type of deal, where for each moratorium you get a longer period of time because it shows good effort. And that the governor was receptive to that as a concept. Not so sure about the rest of my colleagues in the House, but or the Senate. But anyway, happy to answer questions. But I wanted Scott to be here to answer questions, particularly on middle housing and what the plans are for. I don't know if any questions were to come up on the Avalon, or not Avalon. I keep it Riverwood. Because I know Scott's been working very hard on that. So.
Well, I mean, it's great news that if 5002 goes, at least gets delayed, then again, we can at least plan. I mean, until that was about as demoralizing a bill as you could ever possibly read and sit there and say, what are we supposed to do? And really, if it had passed as is, it's almost like, well, you just give up and let whatever penalties happen and you fight it out in the courts, because you can't really comply with the stuff that they're asking for. Now, if without it going through, then of course we sort of fall back under housing authority. We're looking to again figure out how to do another couple projects, how to try to go ahead and get moratoriums. The financing of affordable housing is of course just brutal, and it's really expensive in this area. And so even and that's actually a great point with extending the moratoriums, is it takes a long time to rebuild that purse. And people can say that well, you ought to just do it. And you're like, well, it's tens of millions of dollars. I mean, it's lots and lots of money, and it takes a long time to get them established and to get absorbed. So if we had more time to absorb, that would be huge. It's unfortunate that because of 830G, our focus has to be really on how do you get the next moratorium. I mean, you can't really even look at the other options, and it'd be very nice to be able to do so. I don't know if you guys follow Strong Towns, but the Strong Towns community has a bunch of things that could be done to really help. Some of which may be appropriate, some of which may not, for some of which would not for our communities. But yeah, I think this group here are really looking for guidance from you all and assistance in trying to figure out where would the community be willing to accept what size projects and what size deals to build more affordable housing. Unfortunately, again, I think that the middle gets stuck because if we got to put resources somewhere, it's got to go to something that the state counts. And the fact that they don't count middle income housing is kind of rude on their part. I mean, that's probably the nicest way to put it. Why don't I sort of stop there and just if you guys have questions or things that you all are interested in.
So I certainly have questions, but I'll see if anybody else wants to start us off. So the first question I'll ask is to Tom. In our letter, there were some specific thoughts on 830G amendments, which might be made. And those really were very much bipartisan. You know, lots of people on this committee came up with ideas for that section. And I was wondering, you know, what your thoughts are on those ideas and receptivity in Hartford for them.
So my plan was if this wasn't going to be incorporated into some revised form of 5002 or some other form, I was going to propose, frankly, all of them, depending on what feedback I got from all of you. My understanding is there's universal support from you all on this, and I have yet to hear anyone say anything negative about it. I liked all of them. So, you know, I always say the best ideas come from constituents, not from Hartford or the state reps. And my first bill I ever passed was Narcan in the hands of first responders. It wasn't my idea. It was Ingrid Gillespie. And so while these are not my idea, I think they're fantastic, and I'm going to put them forth and hopefully get some bipartisan support. And thank you for sending it to all of us, because all of the delegation, I think, can support it. And I believe will. I have not had conversations with CC, but I know Lucy was receptive to the concepts, and same with Savit. So I feel pretty good that we can get a lot of this as a complete delegation kind of proposal.
So just before I say something else, Senator Mar did get in touch. Her office got in touch. She is interested in coming in and speaking to us. She couldn't work with this meeting date. So we may have a special meeting, or we may have her come up at the next regular meeting, but we're working back and forth with her office on that. In terms of what I hear from people around town is, you know, a real need for affordable housing for seniors, which, as you know, doesn't get the credit.
Number 5 in your list.
It deserves. And then options for adult disabled people, which again, you know, we have a little bit of that housing in town. It's very hard to build it if you're not getting the 830G credit that you need for that.
Yeah. Did I understand there's some looking at expanding
That's not
apartments?
That's not come through us. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything like
I
that.
will say, Pete, they're starting to reach out. We're starting to have some different talks because, I mean, a huge issue with affordable housing is that it's barely self-sustainable. And so over time, you just don't have the money for capital improvements. And so schoolhouse apartments and the South Avenue Cottage, you know, they really need renovation and upgrade and can become much better facilities. But when you're eking along at almost nothing and it's very tough to get the funds, you have to figure out something much bigger to do in order to make it happen. So at least their boards are talking about that. And they've informed us that we ought to be talking together. And so we're trying to get together and talking about some of that.
And then for Scott, you know, you have a lot of experience in actually managing these communities. You know what leases well, what we struggle to lease. What advice do you have for us as we're thinking about these 3 sites and you know, issues that you've faced in units that have been built and your experience that we should take into account?
Sure. So a couple of the items, not surprisingly, the lower the rents, the more that there's actually some demand. And unfortunately, though, you know, like it's 60% SMI. It's still too much for many people who need it. And then that also raises some questions that at 60% SMI, if you're putting 30% of your income into housing, can you really live in New Canaan? Or do you have to literally shop all the time in Norwalk or try to go other places in order to sustain? I think one of the giant flaws inside of all of the affordable housing community is they assume public transport. And of course, New Canaan doesn't have a lot of public transport. And until we get to be 60, 70,000 people, we won't have a lot of public transport. So the fact that we still need to have cars, we still need to have parking, it becomes very problematic creating the housing that people need. We're finding we're getting a little bit of experience right now over at Riverwood, where we're set up for the next 3 years that all we have to do is 80% of AMI for rent. So there's actually no income requirement for who gets those apartments. We have imposed a voluntary income at 100% of AMI, which call it nominally $140,000. We did actually get some feedback where we've had a couple of people who are around like the $90,000 mark, 90 to 95,000, and 80% AMI rent is too much. I mean, it ends up taking, over a third of their income. It gets to about maybe 40% or so, and they've decided they can't actually afford that, and so they're not choosing to take that. We have found that multiple bedroom units definitely rent much better than single bedroom. I think that, knock on wood, we think we've solved our single bedroom issue, and that we now end up actually having a little bit of a wait list under single bedroom, but not much of a wait list. And like under 830G, you only get credit for the unit. Doesn't matter how many bedrooms. So it's more expensive to do a 2-bedroom that still doesn't cover the cost of the added expense of doing the 2-bedroom, but 2-bedroom have the market, but you can't afford to do too many 2-bedrooms. So you have to do 1-bedroom, which is not as much of a market. And so it just becomes it's strange. And we're being forced by the government to determine what supply we will provide regardless of demand. So multi-bedroom definitely does better. But that actually does it does draw on resources of the town. But even worse is it's even less affordable to build and run than single bedroom. So,
Any other questions? Yes. Familiar face here for you.
See you, Tom.
Good to see you.
I'm curious on the O'Day bill. So there's a proposal for 830G. Would it have to be denied, approved? Is there some calculus as to the nature of the application? Because some applications are strong and some are weak. Some are Potemkin Village, right? You see applications all the time. Is there any guardrails on it or guidance on that?
Not right now, no. I mean, I haven't even been able to get a public hearing on it. So I left it pretty open to say, look, what do you want in the bill to give it a public hearing? And I'll right now, all it contemplates is that if an 830G is proposed and the town, and it's, say hypothetically, there's a proposal for 30 units of a 100-unit complex, and the town says, look, that doesn't really belong here. We'll buy it. We'll give you a 5% profit, and then we get to find places for those houses anywhere. So it's up to the town to decide, the bodies. I wanted to give as much flexibility as possible to the towns. They don't have to deny it. They can just buy it. But we'd have to give longer time frame, because right now there's not enough time for towns to really examine it and to get through the town bodies. So my idea was, and I have not worked with too many of the planners on it, but that once the town says, okay, we're going to put a 30-day hold on this or 60-day hold on it because we're going to contemplate buying it. And then the town bodies decide whether or not they're going to buy it or not. So that's the extent of it. So it doesn't require denial. It just contemplates a process as yet to be developed of having the town decide what they want to do with it.
Option. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, just a pretty basic question from a citizen standpoint. What's Hartford's objective in all these different bills? Is it what's the plan, the grand plan? Is it just the reallocation of people to different cities and towns, to people into the state? What does Hartford see is the goal there?
So in speaking for the proponents of 5002, their hope and desire is to have more affordable housing built in the wealthier communities, as opposed to having the affordable housing, the majority of it in our cities, to relieve some of the pressure, the housing pressure on the cities. And so that I think is their overwhelming goal. And by finding wealthier communities that have transit, public transit in particular, um, uh, there were some incentives that the DECD had that they no longer have. You would put in number 6, offering state funding needed for infrastructure and the like. See, the DECD did have that at a period of time, but they don't now. So to answer your question, some people north of Fairfield County view Fairfield County in negative light. So there is some punitive thoughts by some north of Fairfield County on making us bear more of the burden, housing burden. I don't think that's the majority, but that is a group. It took me a number of years to disavow that thought process. I do truly want and understand we need more affordable housing and middle income housing desperately, but we need to do it in a smart way that allows the towns to control it and give towns more support. So I think we've made some headway thanks to groups like yourself and 169 Strong, advocating for more local control but there is a negativity to Fairfield County that most of us down here don't see, but I see it all the time when I'm up there. But that said, I don't think that's the majority of people, but they want the wealthier communities to absorb more of the affordable housing. I don't think they understand the difficulties that comes with that. As Scott knows, the last time a private built affordable housing, we just bought because it was going back to zero. So I've always said the best affordable housing is town or municipality owned because we have control over it and it's forever.
So I'm going to talk about fair share for a few minutes here, which was in 5002, which was the sticking point. So my understanding is that CCM and Cost came up with some ideas along with the COGS, and they presented it to Majority Leader Rojas and others. And that's the part that was they were like, no thanks. So that's what they're kind of, I'm hearing, sticking their guns on. So it just so happened, as I heard that maybe just yesterday or the day before, last week on, I think it was Wednesday, or there was a Majority Leaders Roundtable. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago. And I was there for that. And then that night in Fairfield, they had a presentation by Duff and
I was there
Rojas.
too.
Yes, and you were there too, Tom. So afterward, I went up to speak to Jason Rojas, Majority Leader, and I said to him, I have a question about your fair share. And I said, the study itself says that those fair share allocations where we have well over 1,000 units allocated to New Canaan. And in the fair share study, it says that 84% of those units have to be for people who make 0 to 30% of AMI. So Scott, I would like you to comment as to what planet that works on, because it's about numbers and about making things work. And if you could just talk about at what level, what percentage we build for, and where we're just kind of barely kind of eking through, and like what percentage are we building at that's working for New Canaan, and how does that compare to this 0 to 30 that they expect? 840 units out of 1,000. If they assigned us 1,000, 840 of them would be to people who make 0 to 30% of AMI, which again is like $30,000 of income level. And it's like $500 of rent a month. So that's my question.
Even 500. I mean, that's the land of vouchers.
Yeah.
And somebody has to just kick in the vouchers because the development itself can't function. I mean, at those levels, you probably can't even, if you had no capital charges, no interest, no anything else, you probably couldn't go ahead and function as a ongoing development. I mean, someone's got to collect the rent, you got to clean some stuff, you got to prevent things from falling down, forget about improving it and actually, again, paying off any capital. So, I mean, if you, every number I'm about to give you is wrong, but let's just pretend that they're in the right ballpark or at least directionally correct. I mean, if it costs somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's say, $600,000 per unit, that probably includes some land, but not necessarily. But if you did $600,000 per unit, well, of course, then you have to know kind of what the land is, but you have the 4% tax credits, which cover roughly 4% or which cover roughly 30% of hard cost. So not land cost. So then you're still left with 70% of hard cost plus all of the land cost, which leaves you probably in the neighborhood of about $400,000, maybe $500,000 per unit. Let's just use 400 again. We'll just pretend at this moment. 400,000, if you're able to borrow at 6% under bonding, which is probably pretty aggressive right now. You mean, so you need to have $24,000 a year just to cover the capital cost, or somebody's got to put up 400,000 or try to do anything in between. And so if you're talking at like $30,000, if you're $30,000 a year in income, then you're at $9,000 in rent. And again, out of that 9,000, you got to pay stuff to keep everything moving. And so, we're short $15,000, $16,000. Did I do that one right? Yeah. So $15,000, $16,000 per unit per year for eternity, not counting capital improvements and a whole bunch of other sort of things. I mean, it doesn't work. So again, either towns have to go deeply in debt in order to fund this. And that goes on the town's balance sheet because eventually housing authority, they won't loan us any money. So, it goes on the town balance sheet. And then what else do we have to put off? And oh, by the way, while our sewer treatment might be fine right now, if you add 1,000 units on sewer, it's probably not fine. While our schools go up and down, if you add 1,000 families, you're going to add a lot of kids. And where do they end up showing up? And then you get to the parking lots and the restaurants and the supermarkets. And I mean, it's all the other stuff that flows through. And it'd be very tough for a town like New Canaan to adopt to 15% increase in housing units, period. I mean, that's a big nut.
And if you want to see the problem right before our eyes, go to downtown Darien right now. Their building is not all done yet, even, and it's a disaster. The infrastructure is not there for all the traffic, and it's not even. I mean, they got some more housing coming online. So I think the governor gets it, and we need more time and money.
Just to go back to that for a second. So I asked Jason Rojas, I said, so how does this work then? If you can't build those units, if no developer is going to step in, you can't, what are you going to say? Build 95 units of market and 5 at that value. I still don't think that would pencil out. It won't, right? So
what did he say?
so he said, okay, so yeah, so here's his comment back. And he said, well, you only have to zone for, again, because you don't have to build it, you only have to zone for those 1,000 units. And he said something will get built. So that something is market value, right? So he's just trying to, so this is just an exercise in density upzoning for every municipality statewide. And it's not about creating market value. So that goes back to, it's about creating more revenues for the state. It's a free option for the state when it's put on the backs of towns.
And of course, it ends up creating more of the barbell. I mean, the more affordable units you have, the more expensive the other units have to be, the more you hollow out the middle.
And that's New Rochelle.
Yeah, it's tough.
So, any other questions?
I had a couple of quick questions, Tom. Thank you for all your work on this. Sure, happy to do it. So I'm really intrigued by your proposal, the 6492 with the 5% penalties. Who sets the market value of that land so that we would pay the additional 5% on?
So good, that's perfect.
A follow up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it would be the concept was basically what the builder paid for it.
Okay.
Now that could, if it was a predatory builder who intentionally overpays in a spot where they know the town has to buy it or wants to buy it, that's a problem. But the town has to seek that out and say, okay, we know what you're doing and we're not biting. Go ahead and build your, but the other part of the, we've seen some other bills that we put out where if somebody proposes an 830G, they have to build those numbers. In other words, what happens all the time in New Canaan in particular, a builder will come in and propose 10 affordable units, 40 non-affordable market, excuse me. And what happens is they negotiate out the affordable And so they'll just, instead of building a total of 50 units, they'll build 30 at market. So they negotiate out the affordable. And that's happened every time there's been a project since Avalon. And so I've seen it, I've witnessed, I've been a lawyer involved in it, and it's not on the other side, but on the town side. And so the issue is, part of the 830G has got to include some language that says, if you propose an 830G project, you have to build the amount of units you suggested, or, it doesn't get approved,
Doesn't
but
get
we're
approved.
fixing that.
What was my second question? I had another. Oh, and just to be clear to everybody listening too, the land would have to be bought outright by the town, right? There's not incentives or federal loans you can get, because that's for the hard costs of building, right? That you get the financing, but we would bond probably to buy the land, but it would just be like a normal.
There's also, there's a huge issue that once you establish a viable project, you can get financing. Until you establish a viable project, nobody wants to talk to you.
Okay.
And so, so in a way, coming forward with the land and getting pretty far along under the development process, under concepts and budgets, some design, then at that point, you can actually finance it. Until then, it doesn't happen. So a logical contribution for the town would be to provide at least the land and then likely some development fees, which then gets us to the starting line where we can get our 3% or 4% credits. And then we can also go ahead and bond for the rest of the costs. And that probably works out to, I don't know, call it 20 to 40% of the cost of the project.
Right. And here land is very expensive. And again, how do you set the price? But really interesting. And as I talked to Tom about this on Saturday, several of us had talked to the governor on Friday night, I think. I can't keep my days straight, but and expressed how we felt about these bills. And one of the sentiments I expressed was that, it's a confusing scheme too for people to wrap their heads around, which is why I'm glad you brought up the middle housing issue. I mean, how can we even begin to tackle that when we are staring down the barrel of 830G constantly and trying to stay ahead of that? So I appreciate that work that's being done. I do think it's, trying to sort of force walkable cities and density and give us whatever percentage we are of Connecticut's population, then you should take that percentage of affordable too. And it's hopefully we explain it in a way, or some of us explain it in a way that that's just it's not feasible to apply that to every town, every of the 169 towns in Connecticut. So yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that this can be worked on for the next year, because we made it pretty clear that it wasn't a great bill.
No, thank you. And every D voice is worth 2 R voices to the
Exactly.
governor. So thank you. I mean, I meant tongue in cheek, hopefully.
No, but I
disagreeing
think,
with
I do think, I think this is helpful. Writing the letter was helpful just sort of for all of us to understand what we have done in this area, that New Canaan's actually done a really good job. And it's about time we pat ourselves on the back a little bit for that. And, and try to work there, because we've got to explain to them why we're going to continue down the path that we are. And we understand the need for affordable housing. We just want to make it right and do what's right for New Canaan, not just build 1,000,000 1-bedrooms that might not be necessarily used. I mean, I think we need to meet our demand.
And I met with the governor up at Irwin, and he drove in his car down when we opened up New Canaan Parish. And he said, New Canaan's a model, and he said it in his public remarks. I mean, we are.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Proud of that.
Yeah.
We should be really proud of that. And the fact that we're trying to work on this, and we have really people who have educated themselves highly on the issues and are advocating for our town. And I think it's a good push. So we'll stay on it.
I have a request for Hartford. If it weren't for Maria, like during this whole last bill season, I mean, it's like you get these emails every single day. You could not track as to which committee was asking which stupid question on which issue on what day. And I'd sign up for something in order to help. Turn out I sign up for the wrong thing. But sure enough, they're talking about something about housing on like every one of these days. It's an incoherent process that is awful. And then the fact that, again, they go ahead and just take these tiny little chunks and then they're able to create these Frankenstein bills. I mean, I think a huge challenge for Hartford would be do this in an open and sane process. And if you win in an open and sane process, so be it. But how they're fighting this one is one that just not fair. And again, without folks like Maria, it'd be impossible to keep track of what's going
Well,
on.
and that's part of the problem, right? And it's what I tried to impress to the governor a little bit, that, we exist under 830G, and that's already complicated enough. But then you're throwing more things on top of it and more requirements. And it's like, where are we supposed to look? Like, who's on first? And it's not a huge town with a huge infrastructure that we can just say, oh, we'll build something on North Wilton or something. I mean, it's just, it's too complicated, which again, then leads people to just say, no, we're not going to support this. We're not going to work on it. We're not going to do anything, which I don't think is productive either. So I feel like it needs to be simplified. There's some really easy changes to 830G that could make a big difference for towns like ours. And then move forward. But I do think, I think middle housing is a huge deal. I think senior housing is a huge deal, and we need to get credit. We need to get something back for that, I think.
Yeah.
And
I think-
understand that that's where our demand lies too, that we have the demand for multi-bedrooms and senior housing and things like that.
And for sure on the senior housing, I mean, every town is different in its needs, and we should be able to react and provide what our community needs. So, and we should be, it's an equivalent. It should be a Hugh Point equivalent. It's like, okay, well, we need, let's just go off the cafeteria and what we need. We need senior housing. We need to satisfy that need so we can move people out of the home, so we can have other families move into them. So, I mean, it makes sense to do these things. These were bills that existed. They just sunsetted. So it should not have been that hard to try to get that back. And I know you guys have been asking for it, but it's important to get that back. The other thing to know is that 830G is an outlier in the entire country. What we have is really one of the most onerous in terms of the ability to completely override height density setback is an outlier in the entire nation. So and it's used in the fair share in New Jersey as the punishment if you don't do your fair share. And here we already have 830G, and now this bill was trying to layer that on top of 3 or 4 other different programs and reporting requirements unfunded that you then have different requirements for. And and you're right, it makes it more difficult, more complicated. And in the majority leaders roundtable, they actually talked about, the head of CHFA and DOH both said they want less regulation, more flexibility, so they can get more building, shovels in the ground and developments happening.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to happen. So I don't know why they're not. I think it's whoever they're hearing from. These developer advocates are, they're paid a lot of money to talk in their ears all the time. And we're here on a shoestring little budget of people who donate to us as 169 Strong, and we try to let people know what's happening pro bono. So we need people to keep telling and thank you for doing that. So we really do need everybody to keep talking to the governor, because the developer advocates are at it again, telling everybody that we want this bill. So we need to keep going.
Any last questions? I have one more before we wrap up. So we touched on Section 8. I know in Canaan Parish, the existence of Section 8 tenants really, really important for the economics of that. I know Section 8 tenants are hard to come by. And this is a question to both of you. Is there anything we can do to attract more Section 8 tenants into New Canaan as part of our affordable housing program?
So we have 2 types of Section 8 tenants inside of the Housing Authority. So Canaan Parish has 60 project-based vouchers. So they stay with the project, not with the tenant. And so that's huge, because that guarantees that we have 60% of our units are essentially a sub-market rent, but something close to market rent, which is hugely beneficial in trying to run a project. Then there are other Section 8 people who do come into Millport or Canaan Parish. And again, they do end up providing additional rent. I'm not sure as to how much additional we get on a Section 8 versus our affordable, but we do end up getting more. The problem from a larger government, like a state government issue with vouchers, is that they actually have to tax somebody and give the money to somebody. Whereas if they just mandate it, then they don't actually have to take money from anyone directly. They can claim it's someone else's responsibility. Maria's followed the voucher issue much more closely. And there's vouchers that don't get used. The localities don't get vouchers. You have to have like a real housing authority I don't take that personally, but you have to have a real housing authority with like staff and be accredited and stuff, and then you can get vouchers. But any of the towns, all the people that they're saying we need more affordable housing, we can't get them or touch the vouchers. And again, I think it's likely possible we could, but nobody understands the process and nobody's incentivized to do it. And the people who control the vouchers are actually incentivized to keep the vouchers. So I think that's the problem. And again, if that could be worked out, that would be a huge benefit on things.
I got that 2 stars.
Yeah, so thank you both very much.
Thank you.
So are we good with public questions, comments? Sure. Okay.
To a microphone, just so that
Anybody
listening-
online can hear.
Yeah, or you
And
can
it
go
say
to the
your
podium,
name,
either one.
Arvin.
Arvin Bajaj, one question.
First time, long time.
With regard to Darien, the Corbin District, isn't there primarily the way they've addressed it, Genovese, was through the adult healthcare kind of program? Is that right? Or is maybe you can share a little more color? I'd be sure.
I mean, we talked to the folk, the housing authority, we did talk to the Darien Housing Authority about their Darien projects. And they really don't know what's going on. And this is not a shot on them. I mean, it's very difficult to keep track of what's happening inside of a town when you're an unpaid organization of volunteers doing something else. But to the best of our ability to know, Darien does not have an 830G strategy. So even under their inclusionary zoning, they go under AMI, not under SMI. So any affordable units that appear inside of all of these projects don't count toward 830G moratoriums. Some of the senior ones or adult disabled, some of those kick in and you do get like 0.6 points versus up to like 2 for a family. So there's some points that do show up, but their inclusionary zoning, to my understanding, is not set for 830G. It's set for normal affordable rules.
And therein lies the problem. The building that's going on in Darien is not planned. It's happening organically by builders who are utilizing the 830G, but it's literally just a potpourri of development that is overwhelming their downtown completely. And it's not even done yet. So, I mean, look, it's beautiful. I've been down there, but I don't want to be driving around there in the middle of the day.
It's going to be a great test. It's like, okay, well, what happens when you add, I mean, I haven't found anyone that's been able to tell me how many units there are. I mean, is it 300, 350?
It's all part of the Corbin District.
Both, and the other one that's on the Post Road up at,
Like, near the train station.
near the
or
train
to
station.
the neuro-
And those, both of those developments are right at train stations. I mean, it's not, Millport technically is walk to the train, but on a January morning, that may not be the best, walk to do or something, but those are right there. But I wouldn't go through Darien before these things came up. And now it's like, I don't know.
And my hometown is Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. It was farmland, half hour southwest of Philly. And now it is strip mall after strip mall after strip mall. No planning. And it chokes me up to go through there now because it's just not where I grew up. And I don't want to see that happening in New Canaan. And look, I love Darien. I hope that they can get a better plan going forward to control what's going on there, but their infrastructure cannot handle what's going on right now, in my humble opinion. But anyway.
And there ought to be some way to study, and again, probably not this group, but it'd be great if somebody's able to study this real life example. And I'm sure some good stuff will come out of it. I mean, you get a lot more units and hopefully get some new mix, and the units are selling. So there's clearly the demand, but it'd be nice to study sort of what they got right and what they got wrong so that.
And the
you know,
impact
other
on the
people can
infrastructure.
avoid- Yeah, so that other towns can avoid that. And maybe we can improve the laws.
And thank you all for all
Yeah.
you do. Seriously. I truly, truly appreciate all you're doing. And Scott and I decided we're gonna match your times your salary by 1, and we'll come up with the difference.
Thank you all.
We are going to move quickly through the rest of the agenda. Is there a report from the project committee?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, and I'll say on behalf of the finance committee, there is still no report. There's also a need for somebody to take on chairmanship of that. So let me know if you have any interest. Update on the use of the budget allocation and the Emma contract?
So I went before the Board of Selectmen, I believe, the end of August. I don't remember the date, but whatever their last meeting in August was, and gave them the rundown on what we're attempting to do with the Amenta Emma contract, which is for $29,500 to study 3 sites that the project subcommittee has identified as potential sites for future affordable housing in New Canaan. And answered some questions, but overwhelmingly it was approved. And so I've been working with the town attorney and Amenta Emma over the last couple of weeks to iron out a couple of wrinkles and wording in the contract that was not suitable to both sides. But as of today, at 5 o'clock, it appears that we have reached agreement. So I will figure out how to get this signed, and I'll have a call with Miles of Amenta Emma to sort of figure out the next steps. But I am anticipating that one of the next steps is going to be a project subcommittee meeting where we introduce them and talk about the scope of the work. So those of you on the project subcommittee, keep your eyes on your email, because we hopefully will be meeting. And then I will have an update at a future meeting on the project subcommittee
Very
agenda
good.
item.
Very good. Well done on moving that along. Any questions for Krista? Nope. Next on the agenda is discussion of further dissemination of the letter we put out in August. Just before we talk about that, we did get responses from Senator Marr, who expressed interest, her office expressed interest in her coming in to see us. As I mentioned, we couldn't coordinate for this meeting. I'll get back to you as to whether we need a special meeting for meeting with her. We got a note from Senator Fazio, who appreciated the letter and said it was very helpful in his discussions in Hartford. And then obviously Tom asked to come in and see us today. So I think it was very well received. My thought is that it would be helpful to disseminate it further, maybe through an op-ed in the paper. I do think if we're going to do that, we need to do a preamble to it, because I don't know what you hear walking around town. 5002 is not very well understood. And that letter is kind of for the experts who read the bill and understand what's in the bill. And it covers off our relationship with the bill. But we would need to have a preamble to get anybody reading the letter on a bit of a level footing. I've started work on something like that, but I just wanted to throw it out for discussion as to thoughts for doing that.
I think that's a great idea. And I think the more widely it gets disseminated, the better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
An
Agreed.
op-ed, I think, I would love to see it go to everyone, particularly those on the relevant committees in Hartford.
Yeah.
Specifically, like sent directly to them.
The list to Chris.
Okay, great.
So I think that makes a lot of sense to at least hit all of the majority and minority leaders,
Mhm.
as well as the Housing and Planning and Development Committee. When they were talking about how many different committees, there were 6 different committees that heard housing bills. Shouldn't be happening that way. And it's a
Especially
shame.
as there's a joint committee on housing, it should be the home.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, it's not the way it went. So
And I think sending it to the governor's office and making sure his staff sees it,
Mhm.
because they work so closely with the leadership in Hartford.
Yeah, so that part's easy and,
Yeah,
and
but, and I like the preamble idea. I think there should be.
so I was referencing sort of dissemination to the community.
Yes.
Who, to your point, we don't often write down all the things we've done. And this is a good spot to write it all down. Might be a good precursor for our, public discussions
Mhm.
around sites and plans, get people thinking that we need to do something and why we need to do it. But I'll work further on that and circulate something. We can get the letter out to the people referenced in this meeting right away, because that's just firing off the existing letter.
and I would say maybe we even let the community feel free to reach out to the leadership up in Hartford. as
Well, that can be part of, there can be a preamble and a,
Preamble with
and a,
the-
postamble
Something.
or something along those lines.
Postscript.
Call to action.
Yeah, that was Krista with Post Amble,
Sorry, guys.
for the record. Okay, that seems like a plan. Public comment. We have more public than we've ever had, so
It's a big night.
it's a big night for the Affordable Housing Committee. I can provide anybody who's interested in the letter with the letter. No, the letter was sent out to our, all of our state reps, the Senate and Assembly. And the thought was before we did a broader distribution, it's a letter that will puzzle people not familiar with 5002. They will kind of say, why are you talking about middle housing? And what do you mean by middle housing? And those who wrote the bill know what we mean by middle housing. So that was the point. So, yeah, well, I'm happy to share the letter, but before it gets more widely distributed, we need that preamble and call to action, we'll call it. All right. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Maria, motion. Okay, Hillary, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? And we're off. Thank you.
Resources.